All right, so imagine you're walking into the grocery store, right?
Yeah.
And it's like something out of a movie. The shelves are kind of bare. It's that unsettling feeling of, wait, where's all the food? Could that actually become our reality here in the US? That's what we're diving into today. Could food shortages actually be on the horizon?
It does sound a bit dramatic, yeah. But it's a concern that's starting to pop up, and not just in fringe circles or anything. We've got this CBS News report, and they actually went and talked to farmers all over the country, and these farmers are genuinely worried about this. Plus, there's an analysis of that CBS report from the Ring of Fire over on YouTube. What's interesting is that you've got a big network like CBS picking this up, something that, smaller independent outlets and even some international ones have been talking about for a while now.
Right, exactly. So it seems like this is moving into the mainstream conversation. And look, this is something that should matter to all of us, every single listener, because, well, we all got to eat, right? The system that gets food from the farm to our plates is super complex. So any kind of disruption to that could really impact what we see at the grocery store and, of course, how much we're paying for it. So what we're going to do today is really try to grasp what American farmers are so anxious about. And it seems like it all boils down to potential mass deportations. And then we'll explore, what kind of consequences could ripple out from that and affect the whole food supply chain. So let's dig in. What's got farmers so on edge right now?
Well, from what we're seeing in the CBS report, there's a lot of genuine nervousness in the farming community. They're really anxious about the possibility of mass deportations and how that could just decimate their workforce. It's not some abstract fear either. It's tied directly to their ability to, actually do their jobs, plant, tend to, and then harvest their crops.
And this isn't happening in a vacuum. Like the American agriculture industry was already facing a bunch of challenges even before this whole deportation issue started looming, right?
Oh, absolutely. If you look at the USDA data from, say, 2017 to 2022, there's actually been a 7% drop in the number of farms operating in the U.S. That's a loss of about 142,000 farms in just 5 years. So that kind of shows you that there's this existing, vulnerability in the agricultural sector, whether it's rising costs or market stuff. There's all sorts of pressures they're dealing with. And then on top of all that, you add in the potential for this huge labor shortage. I mean, no wonder farmers are feeling so uneasy.
Yeah, I mean, it's like adding fuel to the fire. And it seems like the main source of this anxiety stems from President Trump's promise to initiate what he's called the biggest deportation effort in American history. That's got to be pretty unnerving for farmers, right?
Yeah. No doubt. And the Ring of Fire analysis really digs into just how much U.S. agriculture relies on immigrant labor. They highlight data suggesting that as many as 42% of farm workers in the U.S. might not have what's it called? Work authorization. Basically, they might not be legally allowed to work here. So you can see how mass deportations could really throw a wrench in the whole system.
42%. That's a massive number. And this isn't just a problem along the border states or anything, right? Ring of Fire makes it clear this is nationwide.
Totally. Both the CBS report and that analysis are very clear about that. This is a problem across the entire country. We're talking Maine, Florida, California, Alaska. All these places could see a massive drop in the farm labor pool. And it's not specific to one type of crop either. It's pretty much all of American agriculture that's vulnerable here.
So let's say a big chunk of that 42% actually gets deported. What does that mean for the agriculture industry? What are the actual consequences?
Well, things could get pretty bad. Even if the labor force drops by, let's say, 15, 20, or 30%, it would still be devastating for a lot of farms. You got to remember, agriculture relies heavily on labor. You can't just automate everything. You need people to plant, to take care of the crops, and to harvest them. Without enough workers, production goes down, which could force farms to close. And then you've got this whole economic ripple effect. Farmers struggling, rural communities suffering, the whole 9 yards.
And it's not like the effects stop there, right? Ring of Fire really emphasizes how this could impact the whole economy.
Absolutely. If you have a big drop in farm labor, less stuff gets produced, which means less stuff is making it to our grocery stores. And when supply goes down but demand stays the same, well, prices go up. It's basic economics. So this isn't just a farmer problem. This is a problem that could hit all of us right in the wallet. Everyone could be paying more for food.
And then Ring of Fire takes it a step further. They actually say there's a chance of actual food shortages here in the U.S., and they're saying this could happen as soon as 2025. That's a pretty alarming thought.
It is, and if you follow the logic, it makes sense. If you take away a huge chunk of the agricultural workforce, crops aren't going to get harvested, which means there's just going to be less food available. And the analysis is very clear about this.
Hmm.
This isn't some far-fetched scenario. They're calling it a real possibility within the next year based on what's happening right now.
And then, of course, there's that other issue that Ring of Fire brings up, the whole food waste problem.
Right, exactly. If you don't have enough people to harvest the crops when they're ready, they're just going to rot in the fields. And that's a huge loss for the farmers who invested all that time and money into growing them. But it also makes the scarcity problem even worse, which drives prices up even more. It's this vicious cycle, less food available, and what is available is more expensive.
One thing that stood out to me in the Ring of Fire commentary was their frustration that this issue isn't getting more attention from the big news outlets. I mean, you'd think something that could potentially impact our food supply would be making bigger headlines.
Yeah, I can see why they'd be frustrated. I mean, CBS did a report, which is great, but it does feel like this issue deserves more sustained coverage, especially given how important food security is for everyone. It seems like Ring of Fire is really pushing for this to become a bigger part of the national conversation. And honestly, I think they have a point.
And there's this almost ironic point that Ring of Fire brings up. A lot of the farmers who were worried about this labor shortage, well, they might have actually voted for President Trump. It just goes to show how policy decisions can have these unintended consequences, even for the people who supported them in the first place.
It really does. It adds a whole other layer of complexity to the situation. It just shows how interconnected everything is, especially when it comes to essential industries like agriculture. One policy decision can have all these ripple effects that you might not even think about at first.
And it seems like the takeaway here is that this is an urgent issue, right?
Yeah.
Ring of Fire makes it clear that this isn't some far-off possibility. They're saying deportation plans are already being drawn up and potentially being put into action. That makes this a pretty immediate threat, not just to the agricultural industry, but to all of us.
Definitely. This isn't some hypothetical thing that might happen years down the line. We're talking about potential disruptions to the food supply chain happening much sooner, possibly even within the next year.
So let's sum up all this for our listeners. What are the key things to understand here, based on both the CBS News report and the analysis from Ring of Fire?
The main thing to remember is that farmers across the country are really worried that mass deportations could decimate their workforce. And this isn't just a farmer problem. A shortage of farm workers could have huge consequences for the entire food supply chain in the U.S., meaning less food available in stores and much higher prices for everyone. The possibility of real food shortages in the near future is something we all need to be paying attention to.
It really makes you think, right? Food is so fundamental to everything, to our society, to our economy, to literally keeping us alive. What does it mean for all of us if these predictions come true, if there really are labor shortages and disruptions to the food supply? It really highlights how closely linked immigration policy is to something as basic as the food we eat every day.
Yeah, it really does. This deep dive into these reports gives us a look at a potentially massive problem that's right around the corner. It also reminds us that policy decisions can have all sorts of unforeseen consequences, and that our essential industries depend on a really delicate balance of factors. This is definitely something that needs more attention and a deeper understanding of how everything is connected.